what are the takeaways from this? What is it? Let's say one question here that came through is what can small medium enterprises do to address and help identify cyber criminal related attacks?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because they do have constraints around access to skills, perhaps, or access to resources. I think that for a small to mid-sized organization, it's about the basics. It is about making use of, and if they're a UK-based organization, for instance, NCSC, for instance, Cyber Essentials, these are some of the basic things that organizations can pick up, minimal cost, really provide you with a bit of a roadmap. If you're more of the mid-size, then certainly, and people would expect me to say this, then the ISF obviously has a whole range of different offerings. The standard good practice in particular, I would draw attention to, because it does give this linkage out to things like ISO and NIST and all of those other areas where perhaps we see the compliance coming in that again, a mid-sized organization may relate to slightly better.
Yes.
The other thing I would say is, because you don't have the skills yourself, that's no reason for not getting them.
Yes.
So to Robert's earlier point, outsourcing. A lot of managed service organizations out there that can provide very cost-effective services.
Yes.
But again, I think it's about standing back and really understanding the value of the assets that you have, where you're storing them. You're probably going to be using cloud a lot more than, say, a larger organization. You're probably going to be using personal devices very much more for running your business. And so some of that, again, what we would probably look at as being fairly basic cyber hygiene around that, passwords and updates to software and that sort of thing, all come into their own. So I think it's about doing the basics well.
Yeah, fine. Thanks for that. And John, any takeaways with regards to engaging the board? Because I think we've all alluded to the fact that unless an organization gets hit by a serious attack, the board tend not to be as involved. So what can CISOs and security functions do?
I think the first thing the CISO can do is, when you get the opportunity to talk to the board, and certainly in the larger end of the market, there are very few CISOs now who don't get that opportunity. They were all bemoaning the fact they never got it a few years back. Now they all have it. So the challenge is there. So the first thing to do is make it very clear that you understand the business that you're trying to protect in what you say to them. So if you're coming along and you're trying to get them to back you in getting the executive to give you some money to fix things, then talk about it in terms of not necessarily, what can technically go wrong, but talk to them about, in fact, things like ransomware as a scenario, where the impact on the business is very, very tangible, very real. Secondly, draw the parallel between that and the technology that they have either used in the other businesses that they're representative of, or they've had in their past experience. And every board, you'll get the CVs of the board members, so it won't be a secret. So draw parallels with something they've experienced, which could be their personal life as well. And then thirdly, say to them, well, I'm just telling you what can go wrong.
Yes.
You've got to tell me how bad you think that'll be for you.
Yes. Yeah. So play out those type of scenarios.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you have that meeting of minds where then you're no longer talking at them. They're talking to you.
Yes.
About what really matters to them, what really matters to the shareholders that they represent.
Yeah.
And again, it's a dialogue, and it never happens in the first meeting. It never happens in the first 3 meetings.
Yes.
It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
Because in the end, what you're saying to them is, you tell me how secure you want to be, and I'll make it happen.
Yeah. It's a case of
that's
winning
where you want
hearts
to
and
get
minds as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I'd add to that, John, is that again, for many CISOs, they need to move away from this thought that everything happens in the boardroom. Things happen outside of the boardroom. A lot of the conversation takes place with boards outside the board meeting, right?
It's actually amazing how many CISOs don't understand the difference between the executive and the board, at least in the English, UK model. Obviously, the Germanic model is slightly different as well. But you're absolutely right. You've got to win over the board's support. You've got to get the money out of the CFO.
That's right.
And they aren't necessarily thinking exactly the same way, by the way. The same techniques can apply, but you're going to use different examples when talking to the CFO than you would with a non-exec.
Okay.
So you've really got to be very business savvy as a CISO to be successful in the boardroom.
Right.
And by the way, if I can add a slight disagreement here,
Please do.
I don't think it matters a whit who you report to as the CISO. What matters is how you speak. And access, though. So if you report to the CIO means you can never speak to the board, well, that's a bad thing, for sure. If you report to the CIO, but you get time with the board, doesn't matter you report to the CIO or you report to the CRO or whoever you report to. Yeah. And by the way, reporting to the CEO, I know from my own personal experience, isn't necessarily a guaranteed route to success.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Good.
Nobody wants to work for a CEO.
True. Well, I've got one more question, and I thought it's pretty hard question, so I thought I'd ask you this one, Robert. Can you give us a picture of what the future holds for cybercrime, cybercriminals? So elements of looking into the crystal ball on this one.
Well, I think I'm an optimist, and I think as with any criminal activity, you take drugs at the end of the last century, still going on, you're not going to eliminate it completely, but you can bear down on it. You can make a life lot tougher for it. You can go after it. And I think as we do all the defensive stuff, as we harden our infrastructure, as we make our products and our supply chains more secure, as we do the things that Steve and John have just talked about, particularly in getting the basics right, in outsourcing where necessary, in moving to cloud, actually the baseline of security rises for the good guys, if you like, for the economy. There will still always be some highly sophisticated actors out there, looking at the next thing, using all the AI, experimenting with stuff that people are now talking about. But actually, I think it's going to get harder for them, and we can, particularly if there's cooperation between countries, we could bear down on it.
Fantastic. Okay, good.
Agreed.
Well, nice to end on a positive note there. So, gentlemen, thank you all very much for your insights and your ideas and experience. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.